Have you ever felt someone's presence long after they've left the room? As if their energy clings to the air, whispering memories into your soul? That's the kind of haunting we're talking about today. Not the spooky kind, but the sacred emotional imprint of the divine feminine. She haunts me. These 3 words echo like footsteps in an empty hall, filled with memory, emotion, and a presence that refuses to fade. It isn't a ghost that lingers, it's love, it's energy, it's her, the divine feminine. Not bound by a body, not chained to a name, but present, alive, in the spirit of one who once touched the heart of a man who didn't know how deeply he had been marked. This isn't about a physical woman, it's about an energy, a force, the soft but wild power of creation, intuition, grace, and mystery that lives in all of us, regardless of gender. The one who haunts is not chasing, but rather reminding. She does not beg to be remembered. She simply exists in the silence he can't ignore, like the scent of jasmine long after the flower is gone, like a melody he can't get out of his head, even though the song stopped playing months ago. To him, she is a shadow behind every beautiful thing, the moonlight that hits just right, the silence between words, the ache in his chest when he sees something that reminds him of the connection he once had, or almost had, with her. She is in the in-between, the space where spirit meets memory. He may not understand it fully, but he feels it, like ocean waves that touch the shore and recede before he can grasp them. She is not haunting out of bitterness or pain. Her presence is not a punishment, it's a prophecy, a mirror, a message. Her lingering energy is calling him to awaken, to rise, to remember who he is when he is fully seen, fully loved, fully known. She haunts him because she activated something eternal within him, something ancient, something sacred. And once you've tasted that kind of soul recognition, you are never the same. Her haunting is holy. It is a soft echo of the divine feminine's power to transform, to stir, to soften even the hardest heart. She is the warmth in the wind, the pull of the moon, the fire in the belly of a man who suddenly realizes he's missing more than just a person. He's missing his own wholeness. Have you ever walked into a room and just felt something was off, even if everyone was smiling? That quiet inner nudge, the soft whisper in your gut that says, something's not right. That's your intuition. It doesn't shout or demand attention like fear does. It doesn't have to. It knows. It sees before the eyes can catch up and feels before words are spoken. In a world full of noise, confusion, and energetic chaos, learning to trust that inner voice is not just wise, it's sacred. Intuition is your spirit's compass. It gently steers you away from what drains you and draws you toward what aligns with your soul. Like a river sensing its course through rocks and roots, your intuition flows through the unseen. It picks up on energy, on motive, on spirit, things the surface can't show. It's the art of reading between the lines, hearing the truth behind someone's silence, and knowing when to listen without responding. There's a reason the journaled message said, know what to take and what to leave. Not everything deserves your energy. Not every invitation deserves a response. Some spaces require your silence, not your presence. Some people are lessons in disguise, wrapped in charm, but anchored in chaos. This is where discernment becomes a spiritual superpower. It teaches you that walking away doesn't mean defeat, it means clarity. It's the soul recognizing that peace is more valuable than approval. Energetic discernment is the invisible filter that protects your spirit. It senses when a situation no longer resonates, even if it once felt right. Like a bird that knows when to migrate without checking the calendar, your spirit knows when to move on. Discernment helps you feel when a conversation is bait, when attention is manipulation, and when someone's energy shifts without them saying a word. It's not paranoia, it's perception. When you truly begin to honor your inner knowing, you stop arguing with your instincts. You stop second-guessing yourself just to keep the peace. You learn that silence is a response, and sometimes it's the most powerful one. Not every battle is yours to fight. Not every energy is yours to absorb. You're allowed to preserve yourself. You're allowed to say no without explaining. You're allowed to trust the knowing that lives inside your bones. Intuition will guide you when logic gets cloudy. Discernment will shield you when masks fall off. Together, they will carry you through emotional storms and into spiritual safety. Like a lighthouse in fog, they don't chase, they shine. So the question is not, can you trust yourself? The real question is, can you afford not to? Because when you ignore your intuition, you trade your peace for permission. But when you honor it, you step into alignment. You reclaim your power, and you finally understand the most divine decisions are often made in silence. There comes a moment in every soul's journey when two paths silently begin to form, not through loud arguments or dramatic exits, but through quiet decisions and subtle, energetic shifts. In this moment, the divine feminine rose, not out of ego or rebellion, but because her spirit could no longer stay where her soul didn't grow. She didn't force the change, she simply aligned with truth. Like a bird that instinctively knows when it's time to fly north, she followed an inner pull that whispered, "It's time to rise." But as she soared toward a higher frequency, toward healing, clarity, and sacred self-worth, he stayed. Not because he hated her, not because he wanted to hold her back, but because he couldn't move yet. He didn't say no, he didn't fight, he simply stayed silent. And that silence, though soft, spoke volumes. It was like watching a train leave the station while someone you love remains on the platform, not waving, not chasing, just standing still. And in that stillness, the timeline split, not in anger, but in vibration. Not through conflict, but through contrast. She chose the path of light, of awakening, of inner truth. He chose the path of pause, of delay, of hesitation. And that passive choice, the quiet refusal to rise, created a gap no words could close. The divine feminine didn't ascend to punish or prove anything. She ascended because her spirit outgrew the weight of waiting for someone else to catch up. She couldn't keep dancing to the rhythm of a song she no longer heard. She couldn't keep shrinking to stay reachable. Her frequency changed like a melody that only some hearts could hear. And though she still loved him, perhaps even more deeply now, she loved herself enough to keep going. Meanwhile, he lingered in the old timeline, tethered to familiar patterns, distracted by illusion, or simply afraid to rise into the unknown. And yet, his silence wasn't empty. It was a choice, a quiet contract with comfort. It said, "I'm not ready to grow yet." But growth doesn't wait. Ascension doesn't stall for permission. The universe honors energy, not intention. This wasn't abandonment, it was alignment. They didn't part through chaos, but through current. Like two boats that once sailed side by side, but were gradually carried in different directions by unseen tides. He didn't betray her, he betrayed his own becoming. Because the divine feminine was not asking for perfection, only participation. She was not demanding answers, only energy. But when energy isn't returned, when presence isn't mirrored, the connection unravels, not from cruelty, but from contrast. She didn't outgrow him. She outgrew the version of herself who kept dimming her light so he wouldn't feel left behind. This is how timelines split, not with slammed doors, but with missed moments. Not through explosions, but through evaporation. He stayed where she used to be, and she stepped into who she was born to become. It wasn't rejection, it was reflection. And now, as their souls drift across dimensions, there is no blame, only a quiet ache and a deeper knowing. That sometimes love does not end. It evolves, it transcends, it releases. And in releasing, it reveals. The ones meant to walk with you will not hesitate to rise with you. They will hear the call and climb. They will feel the shift and move. Because true union isn't found in holding on. It's found in rising together. There comes a sacred moment in every soul's path when love is no longer enough to justify staying small. The divine feminine reached that threshold. She stood at the crossroads between her healing and her history, between her growth and the comfort of connection. And though her heart still carried care, her spirit whispered louder than her fear, "Choose you." This wasn't an act of bitterness or revenge. It was an awakening, a realization that she could no longer sacrifice her truth at the altar of attachment. Like a flower outgrowing its pot, she had expanded beyond the limits of the relationship that once felt like home. It wasn't that she stopped loving, it's that she started loving herself more. Choosing self over attachment is like learning how to swim while holding a brick. No matter how tightly she clung to the bond, it pulled her under. So she let go, not of love, but of the weight that kept her from rising. She didn't slam a door. She didn't beg to be seen. She simply grew, quietly, steadily. Like the tide pulling back from the shore, her energy began to retreat from what no longer resonated. She didn't push him away. She ascended. And in that ascension, the connection began to dissolve, not from force, but from frequency. They no longer spoke the same soul language. Her healing became a mirror, too bright for unhealed eyes. Her peace became a silence he didn't know how to sit with. And still she wished him no harm. She held compassion in her heart, but no longer at the cost of her alignment. She chose clarity over chaos, wholeness over history, truth over tension. It hurt. Make no mistake, choosing yourself often does. It feels like pulling your own roots out of familiar soil. But some pain is purification, not punishment. She walked away not because she stopped caring, but because she finally understood that real love doesn't require her to stay where she keeps breaking. It was a quiet revolution, a spiritual release. She honored what they shared, without dishonoring who she was becoming. And in doing so, she reclaimed the parts of herself she had once buried to keep the connection alive. Sometimes the bravest thing a soul can do is walk away from what almost fits, to say goodbye not with anger, but with acceptance, to choose evolution over entanglement. She didn't need closure, she needed freedom, she didn't need promises, she needed peace. And in the echo of that choice, she became a woman who no longer waited to be chosen, because she had already chosen herself, not once, but every day, in every breath, in every step forward. And in that sacred choosing, she became her own rescue. On the surface, it looked like he disappeared, No calls, no messages, just silence, like a sudden vanishing act with no goodbye. To the world, it seemed like he ghosted her, left her wondering, questioning, grieving in the shadows of what was never said. But energy tells a different story, because while he tried to erase her presence from his life, her essence lingered in his soul like smoke in a closed room. He might have clicked block on a screen, but her energy slipped through the cracks of his spirit and stayed. The truth is, you can ghost someone physically, but you can't unfeel their imprint when they touched you on a soul level. She wasn't haunting him out of vengeance. She haunted him because she had awakened something he couldn't unsee. Like a melody that replays in your mind long after the music stops, she became the silence he couldn't escape. You're the one who ghosted me, but I'm the one who's haunting you. That lyric isn't just a clever reversal, it's spiritual truth. Because while he chose avoidance, she chose healing. While he buried, she confronted. While he shut down, she cracked open. And that's the difference. Her pain became her passage. She cried, she journaled, she prayed, she screamed into pillows, and stitched herself back together piece by piece. Her healing was honest, messy, raw, and real. But his pain, it didn't disappear. It just went underground, repressed, locked behind walls, dressed in denial. He told himself she didn't matter, that it wasn't that deep. But late at night, when everything quiets down and the noise dies out, he feels her. Not in memories, but in energy. In the ache he can't name. In the tightness in his chest when her name comes up. In the flashbacks he tries to shake off. That's the haunting. That's the echo of a connection that wasn't closed, only cut off. She haunts him not because he wants to, but because she is the mirror he keeps trying not to look into. Her growth highlights his stagnation. Her healing makes his avoidance louder. And somewhere deep within, he knows it. He knows he ran. Not from her, but from the version of himself he saw reflected in her eyes. And while he tries to forget, the soul does not forget frequency. It remembers, it replays, it feels. Because ghosting is only effective in the physical realm. In the spirit, there are no blocks, no unread messages, just unspoken truths floating like mist between timelines. And no matter how fast he runs, he can't outrun what's unresolved. She moved on, but her energy remained like a song stuck in his subconscious. Because when someone sees your soul and doesn't flinch, when someone offers love without pretense, that energy doesn't leave quietly. And so even in his silence, he carries the sound of her laughter, the warmth of her presence, the truth she embodied. He ghosted her, but she's the one who lingers. And somewhere inside, he knows he's not free. He's haunted. Sometimes the most wounded hearts wear the calmest faces. The masculine energy in this story didn't cry openly, didn't confess to the ache in his chest, didn't admit the sleepless nights, or the weight pressing on his soul like a stone. Instead, he rewrote the story. He adjusted the ending to protect his pride, to save face, to appear in control. Maybe he told friends that he walked away, that it wasn't that deep, that she was too much, too intense, too complicated. But deep down, he knew the truth. It wasn't that she was too much, it's that he wasn't ready. So instead of feeling, he fled. Instead of healing, he hid. He buried his emotions like fragile glass under thick sand, pretending they were gone, hoping no one would see the cracks beneath his carefully curated surface. Repression became his armor, denial his disguise. But emotions are not obedient soldiers. They don't vanish just because you ignore them. They build, they fester, they sit quietly in the corners of your spirit, waiting for one quiet night, one familiar scent, one memory to pull them back to the surface like a wave crashing through a locked door. And though he might never say it out loud, not in the daylight, not when pride is watching, he said it in private. Maybe to a trusted friend, maybe through a sigh or a stumble. She haunts me. 3 simple words that reveal more truth than all his deflections combined. Because to be haunted doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering too much. It means carrying her laughter like an echo. It means waking up with a hollow space that nothing seems to fill. He's not over it. He's just over-explaining it. He still feels her energy like a lingering scent on an old shirt, like a voice in a dream you can't shake. But instead of facing it, he masks it. He tries to outrun the ghost by sprinting toward distractions. Another face, another drink, another excuse. Anything to keep from sitting still long enough for her memory to speak. Because if he stopped pretending, he'd have to admit he lost something sacred. Not because it slipped away, but because he couldn't hold it. Not then, maybe not now. This isn't about blame. This is about the prison of pretense. The masculine energy thought saving face would save him from pain, but all it did was delay the inevitable. Emotion demands expression. What's unspoken becomes heavy, and while he puts on a brave front, the truth leaks through his edges, in his silence, in his restlessness, in the way he avoids certain songs, certain places, certain moments that remind him of what could have been. He may never say it aloud to the world, but somewhere in the privacy of his soul, he knows he didn't let go. He lost her. And no amount of pretending can silence the echo of her name in the halls of his memory. There comes a point where the soul can no longer pretend, where the weight of everything denied, delayed, and avoided comes crashing down like a house built on sand. For the masculine, this moment is now. The 10 of Swords reveals it all, rock bottom, not just a bad day, but the end of an illusion, a spiritual collapse, the kind of pain that strips away the ego like a storm ripping the leaves from a tree, leaving nothing but the bare truth behind. Everything he tried to hold together has unraveled. The masks don't fit anymore. The distractions don't soothe. The silence is no longer a safe space. It's deafening. His soul, once numbed by pride and fear, is now wide awake in the rubble of his choices. He thought detaching would make him stronger, but all it did was lead him here, alone, aching, and cracked wide open. Yet within that bottomless fall, something sacred stirs. The wheel of fortune turns, not with chaos this time, but with divine timing. When there's nothing left to cling to, clarity finally speaks. In the ashes of loss, he sees what he couldn't before, her, the divine feminine, the one he tried to forget, the one whose energy never left. She stands now in his awareness, not as a fantasy or memory, but as the Empress, radiant, whole, unapologetic. He sees her not through the lens of projection, but through the eyes of awakening. She isn't just the woman he once loved. She is the embodiment of everything he couldn't understand when he was still asleep. Her love wasn't too much, it was expansive. Her boundaries weren't rejection, they were wisdom. Her absence now speaks louder than her presence ever did. It hits him like thunder. The truth he avoided is the truth he now craves. He realizes she wasn't asking for more than he could give. She was asking him to rise. And now in the silence of his own undoing, he finally hears the call. Rock bottom didn't destroy him, it revealed him. It peeled back every layer of denial until all that was left was raw potential and a choice, to stay broken or to rebuild. And as the wheel turns, he senses it, a second chance, a new cycle, not guaranteed, but offered. But this time he doesn't look at her with longing or fear. He looks with reverence, with understanding, with a heart that finally knows the cost of avoidance and the value of presence. His awakening isn't loud, it's steady, like the slow rise of the sun after a long, dark night. And in that light, he sees the Empress not as someone to possess, but as someone to honor. His soul has been scorched, but now it's ready. Not to chase her, but to meet her, finally, as an equal. Because rock bottom wasn't the end, it was the beginning of becoming. There's a strange kind of ache that sets in when you finally see things clearly, when the fog lifts and you recognize the value of what you lost, but your hands feel tied behind your back. That's where the masculine finds himself now. The shift has happened. The blindfold is off. The narrative he clung to, of being unaffected, in control, unmoved, has quietly crumbled. He no longer sees the divine feminine as a memory to be forgotten or a chapter to be closed. He sees her as she truly is, powerful, radiant, untouchable, in the way that only someone deeply healed can be. But instead of feeling confident enough to approach her, he stands in the shadows of uncertainty. Like a man with a map to a place, he's no longer sure he's welcome. The King of Wands reversed speaks volumes. His fire is dimmed, his vision blurred, his courage clouded. He wants to act, to reclaim, to reach, but fear has gripped him by the throat. He overthinks, he doubts, he stalls. Every step he might take forward feels like it could shatter the fragile remnants of what once was. Meanwhile, the divine feminine moves like a current that cannot be controlled, graceful, bold, directed by divine momentum. The chariot energy flows through her. She has cried her tears, faced her shadows, and risen from the ache with a new sense of self. She no longer defines herself by the wounds others gave her. She defines herself by how she healed them. She still feels she's not made of stone, but her intuition now acts as a compass, not a chain. She might feel the masculine's energetic pull, that lingering tether of soul connection, like a soft whisper in the wind, but she no longer waits by the door. She walks her path with fierce devotion, not to prove a point, but because she has finally become the point. Her peace, her purpose, her power, it all rests within now. And this is what unsettles the masculine most. He once thought she would wait, that she would always be there, emotionally parked in the same place he left her. But time, healing, and alignment have rewritten the story. She didn't move on to hurt him. She moved on to honor herself. And now the tables have quietly turned. The one who ghosted is haunted. The one who avoided is aching. He sees her strength and feels small beside it. Not because she made him feel that way, but because he hasn't yet met himself fully. His powerlessness isn't about her rejection, it's about his reflection. He's standing in front of his own emotional mirror, realizing that the woman who once extended her heart freely is now a fortress of wisdom, grace, and discernment. He wants to reach out, but every scenario in his mind ends with her looking at him the way she once did, with eyes full of light, but this time not as an invitation, as a goodbye. And so he lingers in limbo. The perspective has shifted. He sees clearly now, but clarity without courage is like a key. without a door. The energy between them is not hostile, it's sacred. But sacred spaces cannot be entered without reverence. He knows this now. And while she rides forward, led by divine alignment, he remains still, learning, watching, remembering. Because sometimes the hardest lesson is knowing you've awakened, but still not knowing how to return. If this message stirred something in you, if you felt her too, then you are not alone. This is just the beginning of a deeper awakening. Subscribe to Magnetize Official for more channeled messages, divine insights, and soul-aligned content.